Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q1 FY 2022 earnings conference call of Gufic Biosciences Limited. As a reminder, all participants' lines will be in listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Ami Shah, Company Secretary, Gufic Biosciences Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Ms. Shah.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am Ms. Ami Shah, Company Secretary of Gufic Biosciences Limited. Welcome you all to Q1 FY 2022 earning conference call of Gufic Biosciences Limited. I have with me Mr. Pranavjit Choksi, Chief Executive Officer and Director, Mr. Devkinandan Roonghta, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Nagesh Vai, Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Avik Das from Investor Relations team to give the highlights of the business performance of the company and to clarify the queries of the investors during the call. We'll begin the call with opening remarks from the management, followed by Q&A session. Before proceeding, I would like to draw your attention that some statements which may be made by the dignitaries of Gufic in today's call, describing the company's objectives, projections, expectations, and or any other events which might be forward-looking statements and are dependent on various factors and must be viewed in conjunction with the risk and uncertainties involved in our business. The company assumes no responsibility to publicly update, amend, modify, or revise any forward-looking statement based on any subsequent development, new information, or future events, except as required by applicable laws. And I just would like to say that we are just two earning conference call old company, and we seek your apology in advance in case if we are unable to address your queries to your fullest satisfaction. However, our attempt is to be fully transparent in our disclosure and to enable the investor to get a clear picture of company. I'll now hand over the call to Mr. Avik for his opening remarks. Thank you all. Over to you, Mr. Avik.
Mr. Das, we're not able to hear you. You seem to have muted your line. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I hope everyone and your families are safe in these trying times. Just to begin, I'll give you all a brief overview of Gufic's domestic formulation business. So as you all know, in these trying times, Gufic has endeavored its level best to serve the nation and its people through life-saving and affordable medicines. Through the contract manufacturing division, Gufic ensured availability of COVID drugs and all medicines for the deadly black fungus. We continue to grow our various divisions, staying true to our underlying principle of leveraging our large manufacturing base and applying the art and science of lyophilization into new drug delivery systems. A quick overview of our domestic business. Our MAT ranking for Gufic has continued its progression from March 21 till June 21 by reaching a rank of 74 from 92. Gufic has emerged as the fourth fastest growing company amongst the top 100 pharma companies in India. This is as per the ORG IMS data that we received. Criticare division via brands like Immunocin Alpha, Ulinafit, Guficap, Gufizome, which was a very critical drug in the black fungus outbreak, have contributed towards the domestic sales rise. Our strategy is in place to sustain the momentum via a well-defined plan to reinforce our growth within and beyond the ICU setup. Healthcare division via brands of Immunocin, which is a herbal immunity booster, and GoViro, which is a herbal antiviral, has created a niche in the market in these times. Spark division, which is focused on pediatrics and general physicians, has started the year on target with the brand Gufidox, which is an antibacterial. Ferticare and Aciderm faced a slight challenge in the lockdown and second wave of COVID-19 as these therapies took a backseat. Stunox has been one of the most successful launches in the division, and the brand has carved its niche in the aesthetic dermatology segment. The safety and efficacy of the product is excellent and well accepted. We are confident that the future prospects of Stunox, especially Type E and the topical formulation which is in the pipeline, will be successful game changers in the segment of aesthetic dermatology. Also, as the unlock phase continues, the infertility business is making a strong comeback, which is in line with our expectation and experience from our previous unlock trends. Our strategy going ahead is to launch some new drug delivery systems, transdermal products, oral hormones, and synthetic hormones in the coming quarters. We believe there's a large unmet need for these products. This, coupled with the revival in demand that we are witnessing in our existing product basket, we foresee a strong and buoyant runway for this division. We are already seeing a healthy signs of it in the last couple of months. Moreover, with the insights of the medical fraternity, we have innovated pre-filled syringes and are working on other new drug delivery systems which make the patient administer the same in the comfort of their home, especially where travel needs to be avoided in these pandemic times and is not encouraged for women who are undergoing pregnancy. We've recently introduced a division to focus on the growing orthopedic and gynecological segment with products spread across segments like pain, infection, pregnancy and lactation, and bone and muscle health. We've selected nutraceutical products and certain NDDS products that target their entire gamut of arthritis to tendinitis and basic pain management. We have received good response for the products from both patients and doctors. Given the niche area in which the division operates, with a well-defined and target product basket, we are fairly certain to attain our targets of this division as well. We have one of the largest market share in Boswellia serrata-based products through our flagship brand Shalaki, which is part of our mass market product portfolio. We have realigned our business strategy for the division by planning the launch of specific new extensions for Shalaki in pain management. We have onboarded new leadership team to catalyze the business strategy as well. Apart from India, this product has been exported to Switzerland and Germany, where there's a good demand for this product, and we foresee a good runway of growth in these markets as well. Our other products like Nomocare and Eufinox, which is mainly used for management of clots, and Amphophix, which was used for black fungus, have also aided our growth. To summarize, we have 8 well-defined business divisions with more than 1,100 talented and driven field force. We have an excellent supply chain across the nation with 23 CFAs catering to the remotest cities. We have a solid marketing and distribution structure all around India, which has helped us establish ourselves as a national niche player by leveraging our product pipeline and reach. We aspire to become a national multi-specialty player within the next 2 to 3 years via affordable cutting-edge innovation. Now I'll hand over the call to Mr. Nagesh, who is our COO, to give you all a brief about our export, API, contract manufacturing, and our product pipeline. Mr. Nagesh, over to you.
Yeah, good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for Avik. I would like to update on exports, contract manufacturing, API, R&D setup, a pipeline, and new projects. Exports took a hit in a quarter due to the unprecedented Indian patient need, and Gufic is being one of the largest manufacturers in the world of antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, and other life-saving drugs. So we committed our total capacities to Indian market demand in order to service our domestic healthcare system. And from Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America, orders were deprioritized. However, with ease of demand, Indian demand, we will be catering to order built up in the second quarter. We are happily announced that we have received a marketing authorization for vancomycin 500 mg and 1000 mg from Malaysia, pantoprazole 40 mg, vancomycin 500 mg and 1000 mg from Health Canada. Our patented formulation of tetracycline 50 mg injection received marketing authorization from Russia and South Africa. With this tetracycline injection is now registered in 3 regulated markets. We also received a marketing authorization for teicoplanin injection 200 mg and 400 mg 2 strength from Germany. For the contract manufacturing, the high growth in contract manufacturing business has been driven by manufacturing of remdesivir and liposomal amphotericin B, which were used for the COVID-19 and as an antiviral and antifungal respectively. Just I would like to update on API. To accelerate the API research and development, we have started fully equipped state-of-the-art R&D facility in Navsari, Gujarat with a dedicated team of scientists. The API R&D activities are focused on developing non-infringing, novel, cost-effective and scalable chemical process for APIs and peptides and cyclopeptides. The APIs developed are mainly used for in-house formulation development, and some of the APIs may be offered for the sale of domestic as well as for global market. Currently, our API R&D is developing molecules in various therapeutic category like antifungal, anticoagulant, tetracycline antibiotics, progestin, anti-diabetic, and cyclopeptides. We are also foresee the API business to continue the targeted growth with increase of pipeline and also leased outsourced facilities. I would like to update on pipeline. Apart from the candidates of D29, O26, IS6, Stanox, TO, and TE, Gufic has invested a lot in the first quarter in raw material, developmental of these products, validation of these products, and dossier preparation for certain new molecules which should have short-term and long-term significance in these testing times of pandemic and beyond. I would like to hand over this further session to Mr. Roonghta, our CFO, to present the financials.
Thank you, Nageshji. Good evening. I am Mr. D.B. Roonghta, CFO of the company. I am just giving you brief highlight of the Q1 of the financial year 21-22. I am making all the comparison with Q1 with the Q4 of 2021 because of the Q1 of 2021 was abnormal result due to COVID-19. All India, whole the country was under lockdown till 17th May. So all the comparable figures are with Q1 of 21-22 versus Q4 of 2021. The revenue from operation has been gone up from 132 crores to 251 crores. The main contribution for increasing the revenue is due to the sale of COVID-related drugs and medicines. The employee benefit expenses has been increased from 17 crores to 25 crores. The main reason for giving the incentive to the sales employees for achieving the sales target, and it was linked to their sales target, and therefore there will be increasing in their incentives. Other operating expenses has been increased from 26 to 32. Main reason for increasing is the commission to CNF agent because of the increasing sale and increasing the transportation expenses. The EBITDA has been increased from 24 to 46 crores. EBITDA margin is remain at the same level of 18.5 crores. Profit before tax has been increased from 13 crores to 31 crores, and tax margin has been increased from 10% to 12%. Thank you. I am handing over now this to our MD, Pranav Choksi.
Yeah. Sir, I would like to update on new facilities also. I missed that one. Actually, globally, the antibiotics are valued at 40 billion and expected to grow at CAGR of 4%. The market size is expected to reach almost $57 billion by 2026. The global market of carbapenems is also expected to reach 1.8 billion by 2029. So the management has been approved to set up 2 manufacturing units. One is penem facility, and second one is the general facility. So for the penem facility, there are the 2 to 3 major players in India in carbapenem antibiotics. That is, one is Aurobindo and Gland. Now we are setting up a plant with lyophilized facility of 3 million vials, oral solids 30 million tablets and capsules, and dry powder injections 30 million vials. Apart from this, we are first time in India we are setting up a new direct delivery system with dual chamber bags with 24 million IV bags. So after this, currently we are manufacturing general injectables lyophilized vials, 18 million vials in Unit 1 and Unit 2 30 million vials, and now we are setting up almost 36 million vials in from the Unit 3. Currently we are manufacturing pre-filled syringes almost 33 million pre-filled syringes in Unit 1 and in Unit 2, and now we are setting up capacity of 30 million pre-filled syringes in Unit 3. Currently we are manufacturing ampules of 12 million ampules, and we are expanding this one to 60 million units in Unit 3. So to summarize this, currently our capacities will increase in lyophilized facilities from 48 million to 84 million vials. In pre-filled syringes, 33 million pre-filled syringes to 66 million pre-filled syringes. Based on this current market scenario, we are expecting our trailing order book to be 1.5 times of the total capacity. Apart from this, I would like to happily tell you that about the marketing authorizations in regulated markets. We have the marketing authorizations in Germany for 7 products in Germany, 3 marketing authorizations in Portugal, and 3 marketing authorizations in Canada, South Africa 1 marketing authorization, Malaysia 3, Russia 1, and Colombia 7 marketing authorization. So we are thinking that for the future, this new facility will add more and more marketing authorizations and export business from the new facility. I'm handing over to our executive director.
Yeah, thank you, Avik. Thank you, Nagesh, and thank you, Roonghta sir. So I believe before we go to the question and answer session, I just want to address some which has been, asked to me and towards the company, and I'm sure there will be a lot of the questions going forward. So before I go there, we see the insight provided by Avik in terms of the domestic infrastructure which we have and our road going forward. And you couple that with the export registrations, which Nagesh just spoke about, was in the last 1.5 years. And apart from that, we have around 120 registration already existing for the SEG or the regulated market already. We feel that the capacity which we are investing right now should help us see this. I would take these requirements or take these, spurts going forward. Also, one more thing, the current domestic increase, which we have seen in the first quarter, I feel has also opened up another opportunity. I think I'm just, putting the reference to what Dr. Reddy's, senior management also claimed. We have seen beyond, Indian domestic space open beyond what it was in the last few years. And I feel that Indian domestic market, which is close around maybe 35 billion US dollars, there is on a much higher growth trajectory. So even in this capacity which we are mentioning to you right now, if something else comes apart from the pandemic, we see a natural progression of sales happening much beyond the pandemic also. So that's why the capacity which we have planned to invest in the future is the need of the hour for the company, and which will be mostly taken care of by internal accruals. At the same time, we are keeping an option open also of debt going forward. Also, like, a lot of people asked, were telling us, okay, is this a COVID-based top line? Is this a COVID-based bottom line? So I would just like to elaborate on that also. COVID definitely has helped to push up maybe around 15 to 20% of the revenue what you see right now. But it doesn't mean that, this is something which is, a one-off and cannot be sustained in the future. We have our own growth maps in terms of divisions domestically. If you see, the first quarter we could not entertain or supply to any of our regulated markets, or maybe we had, short supply to a lot of markets, and there is a big back in orders which we are trying to take care of in the quarter. This coupled by the natural demand which will come up for infertility and for planned surgeries and for basic, I would say, ortho and gynecological procedures, we foresee that the growth can be sustained, in the, I would not say in the years to come, but we hopefully with the capacity and in organic growth which we have, by the end of the year, we should have a sustainable sort of a business which complements the first quarter. At the same time, I would like to add, there is a component of around 15-20%, which will also go away as the COVID goes away. But the fungus, very frankly, was a phenomena which was of a month or maximum 1.5, and that is mostly captured in the contract manufacturing in our normal sale. It has not contributed much, or I would say, to the top line. But the bacteria which we make for black fungus, Rhizosomal amphotericin B, has a great future nonetheless in the international market also. So till now, this last quarter has seen us to some extent, I would say, exert our strength and exert our ability in the domestic space. When this is complemented by the international, at the same time, the domestic market is opening up for other, I would say, SBUs of the company, foresee a sustainable growth for years to come. And we hope that this, and I'm sure, I don't hope, that this is not a quarter in isolation. Of course, I think this is all I had to say for myself. Already I've given you a introduction in the last call about the pipe, and I will hand the session to Ami and Vikram for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue once your questions have been answered, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. In the interest of time and fairness to all participants, ladies and gentlemen, please restrict questions to two per participant. If you have still more questions, please join the queue afresh. We will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. We have a first question from the line of Rohan Agarwal from Loop Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, Pranav. Can you hear me?
Yes, Rohan, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Yeah, congratulations for a great set of numbers to you and the team, and for playing your part during a tough quarter for the entire country. My question pertains to the botulinum toxin foray that we have planned. Can you just give us more color on where we stand right now on commercial production and any regulatory approvals that would be required for it?
Sure. So first of all, thank you, Rohan. Like I said in the earlier quarter that, botulinum toxin or Stunnox, which is a brand, is a more, I would say, long-term approach, which of course has own, I would say, valuation and also expectation in terms of revenue. We have, to answer the question specifically, we have launched the product in the month of February, where the name is Stunnox. It's a type A of botulinum toxin, which is a similar one with the Botox, which you see in the market. So we're the first Indian company to actually collaborate with an American company for the basic strain. And then we have engineered the finished formulation in-house here in India itself. And that has given us a lot of confidence. Like I said, April, May was a little bit challenging, but June onwards, the botulinum toxin has shown almost doubling up every month in terms of sale. However, very small. I'd say the contribution to the botulinum toxin as of now may not be even in the below single-digit percentages. But the scalability is something which attracts us towards this business because we have a pipeline planned of a new analog, which is a type E, which is going to be first time in the world. Again, with a collaboration with Dr. Balram Singh from United States, where he holds the patent for the same. So using his basic strength in the strain engineering and using our strength in the formulation development, we're going to come up with a set of pipeline of these different analogs and topical options of botulinum toxin, which makes the entire drug much more patient-friendly, cost-effective, and also gives solutions which are beyond. So like to give you a little bit of a technical outlay, a type is something which blocks the nervous system for a period of 4 to 6 months. We are working on something which can block the nervous system only for a month, which can be used in some sports injuries, which can be used in some other neurological conditions also. And then also we're working with the topical application also. There are certain things where patients are averse, injection, or there are certain things where you want minimum dose to be applied on certain area, whereas the topical option comes through. So like just to summarize, we have heavy expectation, keeping in mind the $6.5 to $7 billion international market. And currently our focus is mostly on India. In the next 2 years, you might see the company, once we have enough critical mass in India, to foray into the, I would say, the international market also. So I hope I've answered your question, Rohan. Anything else you want me to address?
Sure, that's it. And good luck for the coming quarters.
Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Romil Jain from Electrum. Please go ahead. We lost the line of Mr. Romil Jain. We move to the next question from the line of Ashutosh Garud from Ocean Dial AMC. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. Congratulations on a great set of numbers. So first, I wanted to understand the operating aspect of your business, because if we see the top line has moved up quite sharply from a Q1Q basis as well. But your other expenses and your employee expenses have also gone up in a similar proportion, and your EBITDA margins have been same Q1Q basis. So could you explain how this works, and is that the variable component is so high in these cases, or do you think if we have these kind of top lines, then our operating leverage will kick in and our margins can be much better going ahead?
Sure. So I think I can, this is Pranav here. I'm sure Roonghta sir will contribute to this first, and I'll just add on later. Roonghta sir, you will take it first, and then I'll add on later.
Sorry, sir, we can't hear you. You might have muted yourself. Please unmute.
Hello.
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, employee cost has been gone up because of the incentive has been given to the marketing employees for increasing the targets. It's like a variable expenses. Whenever there is an increasing in the sale, the proportion automatically there will be increasing the incentive, and it will link to the sale target. Other operating expenses is basically commission given to the CNF agent as well as transportation costs. It's also like a variable cost. Whenever there is an increase in the top line, the similar proportion there will be increasing in other operating expenses. But we feel that this quarter we have done given lot of samples for COVID patients free of cost also, and there has been lot of R&D expenses. The cost of goods may come down. The margin may improve from 18.69 to around 20%. But the scenario will be same. If there has been increase in the top line, the operating margin, EBITDA margin will be in the range of around 20% only. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you, Roonghta sir. And just to add, I think what perfectly said by Roonghta sir also, because if you see the gross margins have been affected by four major, I would say, things. One, of course, being the API cost going up, because a lot of APIs which have been used for anti-infective are still sourced from China. And it didn't feel right at the same time, because of the NPPA in India, which is the price control in India. And apart from that, we have our own commitment also to the hospitals. We did not increase our selling price to the market in the time of the pandemic, even though the API price in some products, I would say, have skyrocketed. And that's one of the reasons we have started our own API R&D, where we can actually, back into most of our, source products from China, which might still take a year and a half for scale up, but we should be there at least, where we feel around 60% of the API should be either made in India or should be, out of that, maybe at least 30% of what we consume should be made by us, keeping in mind not only the domestic market, but because of a commitment to the export market also. Rightly said by Roonghta sir, a lot of, I would say, it was also required by us, and that's what we decided by management and everyone. A lot of free goods of these pandemic were given as a part, and were given as a part of that, and that is a substantial amount which is added in the consumption. Apart from that, we also have seen that the export sale in this quarter was almost, very less, because all our capacities had to be diverted to the domestic market. So that naturally also brings a pressure, I would not say pressure, a little bit of a reduction in the percentage going forward. So going forward, when the export starts kicking in, the domestic market product mix of infertility Aesthaderm also kicks in, which is of course a better margin, a much higher margin. Plus, of course, our operating leverage kicks in. We expect the margins to be better in the times to come. So I think Ashutosh Joshi, both of us answered the question to your requirement.
Yes, certainly. So I had a follow-up. If I look at your gross block, it has almost doubled in last 1 year and especially in 2 years. Okay. So what is the kind of utilization levels we have in the new capacities which have come up? And if I understand correctly, out of this 250 crores, if you are saying 15-20% is related to COVID, so even if we take 200 crores kind of a top line run rate, what is the scope where it can, go up to? What kind of a quarterly run rate are you targeting reaching, given the gross block doubling?
Okay, so one of the major reasons for the gross block doubling is the merger, which is, the Gufic Life Sciences was merged into Gufic Biosciences, and that's the main impact it has come. Apart from that, we have added one more separate lyophilization line in the year 2020-2021, which has helped us to take care of the remdesivir for the domestic market. So if you see, most of the revenues which you see are right now on the loan license front for certain COVID drugs. That's why I mentioned it's around 15-20% of the current revenue. To sustain our growth forward, I feel the way, I think this is what Nagesh Bhai also explained beautifully, that the Canadian, the Russia, the South Africa, and I'm just naming 4 or 5 countries, but all these markets have still not even started, and and the Brazil for that matter. So when these things start coming in, and the current domestic market push which we have, plus the existing German market which is reacting to us along with the Southeast Asian markets, we feel that we are going to be 1.5 times our order books. Currently, we are already at 1.5 times. We foresee this order book to be over leveraged by almost 1.5 times till December, and that's what the need is to come up with a new facility going forward. In terms of revenue, as we say that we always had planned a 15% minimum year-over-year thing going forward. However, of course, this year has been I would say a little bit on the positives because of this COVID. But however, it has also opened a lot of avenues by which we have got fast track approvals for certain international markets apart from new launches in Indian market. So hence we feel all these factors put together, the maybe 15% plus revenue growth year over year on the combined entity is something which we minimum expect out of us in the next few years.
Okay, great. And lastly, what is your export percentage in revenue?
So currently the export percentage is around close to 25 to 30%. It'll be around 22 to 25%, which we hope that this year with the normal things should start come to around 30%.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot and all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Chetan Phalke from Alpha Investco. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I was just looking at our previous numbers also. Our employee cost, which used to be less than 5 crores, today we are hitting a run rate of almost 25 crores per quarter. I'm talking about 2013 to 2021. And we have also increased our revenue from 100 odd crores to 500 odd crores. So phenomenal growth over the last 7-8 years. So would like to understand now what next. What is the peak revenue that we can hit from our existing capacities? One. Second, if I look at the capacity addition plans on our lyophilized vials in Unit 3 Navsari, we are adding 36 million units over there per annum. We are also adding 43 million liquid injections capacities and PNUMs and everything. So what kind of revenue or peak revenue that we can expect post this expansion that is being put out in the presentation, and what kind of capital which is required for this CapEx?
All right. So first of all, thank you for your questions. As we mentioned that if you see the increase in employees and the revenues already was planned because of the organic marketing launch which we did in 2015 when we entered the Indian domestic space, where we suddenly went from 100 odd team to almost now close to 850, 900 odd people. And hence you see that the expansion of the team in the last few years has not been as much which has happened in the 3 years before. But there we already are getting some operating leverage and we're getting the economy of scale, which is eventually helping the margin improvement also. So answering your next question that yes, the next growth drivers or the revenue drivers would be these new international markets opening up, taking more market share, not only in the Indian space, but also in the regulated and the semi-regulated space. Also come up with, pipelines consistently for the next, I would say 3 to 5 years. We already have a plan set and now we are looking at subjects, beyond the 6th year onwards because, there are some products which are low hanging fruits where we just need to have our, basic testing and stability done. And there are some things where we need clinical data, we need clinical trials, and we need the entire Jing Bang till phase 3, phase 4 also. So so in a pharma industry, no one can actually tell you, that this is the thing which is going to be true. We've always worked on, maybe 10 things, and maybe if 3 of them work now, we are more than happy and we more than cross our basic target. But again, I will not give you any specific numbers, but all I can say is that, a minimum 15% year-on-year growth is what we expect with this capacity expansion, pipelines, increasing of market share, operating leverage because of the existing field force which we have, and the new dossiers going in. Just to give an example, in the first quarter, we saw some avenue of cash flows coming in, and hence we immediately started to work on certain products which were low-hanging fruits, which got us the traction in the first quarter and will get us some traction in the second quarter also, which are part of COVID or some which are beyond COVID also. Coming to the Navsari it might be Navsari or it might be some other place in India where these 2 Unit 3s and Unit 4s which will be coming in, they will help us to take care of the future growth because again, we are international contract manufacturing as well as a marketing company. So we foresee a lot of revenues either will be created in bottom line or some of them will be reflected in top line when we have either an LL or a direct sales option also. So to say in a nutshell, 15% year over year is minimum what we expect and beyond. And all these factors combined can help us for the same.
Okay. But what kind of capex will be required for Unit 3?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that question. The capex which we are expecting in this year alone would be around 120 to 130 crores. If you foresee our cash flow for the last 2 years, we already have paid up a big chunk of our debt. Of course, there has been a positive cash flow coming in, and that's one of the reasons that we have preponed our capex plan from next year to this year also, because our order book is also increasing at a much faster pace and we have to be ready. So we're looking at a 120 to 130 crore capex in this year alone, which will be taken care of by internal accruals. Yesterday it was presented to the board also. And at the same time, we are keeping some option of debt also if some other opportunity comes up, because we are also working on product dossiers and new product development and R&D, for which also there will be some cash flows required. So a combination of internal accruals with some part in debt is the way forward for this new infrastructure expansion.
Okay. And we will complete the entire Unit 3, Unit 4 for this year itself by spending 100.
No. So the station will be in the next 1 month, or depending on how the board approvals and everything is going on. And we should be in the position of commercialization by Q3 next year.
Okay. So, and the total capex over the next 3 years will be more than 120-30 odd crores, or?
Yes,
will
definitely.
Okay, how much will be, if you can get some idea?
Cash flows coming in, and the cash flows. So mostly we are trying to become as efficient in using internal cash flows. And if there's an opportunity which is much beyond that, then also debt is always an option which we have, keeping in mind the current speed of the company.
Okay. So to complete, basically, I'm just trying to understand, to complete the entire capex plan which is being laid out in the presentation, how much money do we need? That's what I want to understand, basically, and how much time it will take.
So like I said, internal cash flow for the next year should take care of it. If needed, little bit of debt will be required. It should be in the next 12 to 14 months. For the phase 1. For the phase 2, present to the board, or we are not taking a decision, it will be too early for me to comment on anything.
Okay. Just one last question. What will be the next leg of growth? Which are the products from where it can come in? Hormone injections, depot injections, or any other products that you see which can really change the course for the company?
Again, I'm saying we are working on a system of anti-infectives, cardiac, infertility and hormonal medicine, and also acidomes and these toxins. And we also are working on certain of our pipeline. It's going to be a conjugate call, but the main, I would say, in terms of product pipeline, it will be mostly injectables and new drug systems surrounding injectables and lyophilization should be the growth drivers for us in the years to come.
Okay.
Mr. Chetan, could you please come back in the question queue?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please restrict questions to 2 per participant. We have next question from the line of Ishita from Ashika Stockbroking. Please go ahead.
Hi. Great set of numbers. Just to go back to amphotericin, you mentioned 15-20% top line, and you mentioned there's market beyond COVID for amphotericin B. Can you please shed some light on that? That's my first question. My second is it right to assume that Stonox's sales as of now are negligible, or do we have something?
So I'll start with the last question. First of all, how are you, Ishita? Thank you for your questions. So you're right that Stonox are right now negligible as compared to the other brands which we have, of course, but we are expecting a much better trajectory in terms of growth because of the uniqueness which we offer, and also the market presence where there is limited or almost less competition. To tell you, the amphotericin B is a drug specifically for black fungus. Otherwise, apart from amphotericin B, there have been many drugs which we have worked on, which have aided in that 15-20%. So again, I would say that 15-20% is not only amphotericin B, but action of COVID drugs, clot drugs, and I would say amphotericin B also. To have that going forward, beyond that, we have certain product pipelines which will sustain beyond COVID, because they are used not only for the purpose of black fungus, but a lot of Candida species and a lot of other species going forward. You require the use of lipo-ampho along with other echinocandins like caspofungin, micafungin, and annulafungin, where we are the major or the biggest manufacturer of not only formulations but also API. So this is where I feel the sustenance of the business will be much beyond the COVID, and that's why I have my confidence. And like I said, Stanox is negligible right now, but will have a better trajectory because of the roadmap. It's very unique. Have I answered your questions, or have I missed something?
Yes, just a follow-up. I understand that there are a lot of species that can be targeted from these antifungals, but do we have a number on how large the market is, even including outside India?
Yes, the countries where we are targeting and the Indian market, of course, we have our numbers, which has been given to us by certain estimates of, I would say search agencies or whatever, IMS data and all that. And based on that, we go ahead with the projections.
So do we have a number?
Yes, it'll change, but as of a year ago, which I remember, it's close to around 3,500 crores in the markets and the India market where we are looking for.
Okay, awesome.
I'm saying purely infective. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And do we have any plans to enter US, or are we just not touching that regulated market yet?
No, actually, very frankly, there has been some push from certain people as a contract manufacturing for US, but I have always maintained that for a company of our size and where our focus on a pipeline is, we like to be a little bit well spread in other countries first before we even think about United States. So maybe a contract manufacturing opportunity for the United States might be welcome in the future. As of now, we will be mostly outside US, at least for the next 2 years, according to me. As of now, like I said, anything can happen later.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Surabhi Saraugi from SMIFS Capital Markets. Please go ahead.
Hello. Sir, Yes. Sir, my first question is that your Criticare and contract manufacturing divisions have registered high growth this quarter, driven by COVID-19 medicine. So can you give some comments on the sustainability of that?
Sure. So, like I said, contract manufacturing of the COVID drugs and I would say black fungus drugs have taken a seat, but there are other drugs beyond COVID have a backlog in terms of, say, drugs have applications for plant surgery for other species of fungus, or they are used in certain other, empirical therapies also. So that's why I feel that maybe apart from the 15-20%, which might be the extra push which might have come, there are other possibilities which might still sustain. And keeping in mind the growth in the Indian market, which we asked or which we have felt organically, I feel they will be quite okay to sustain. With all the new pipeline of drugs entering every quarter by Gufic, we are fine. I think the sustenance should be okay in the critical care space as well as the contract manufacturing space also.
Okay, sir. And sir, my next question is regarding your recent successful launch of Stanox. Can you quantify the amount of sales this quarter?
This quarter numbers I cannot quantify because, like I said, from June, July onwards, the doubling has happened. But hopefully in the next quarter, I can give you some indication where the actual thing comes.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Kushal Shah from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Sir, what would be your penetration into the domestic market? Like, how much can we grow? What kind of views you have? Like, what would be the headroom to grow in terms of area, region of coverage, and MR strength, and addressable market with current products?
So, Kushalji, I believe it's mostly for the Indian market, right? This question, as of now. Yes. So in terms of critical care, I think in terms of, I'll just give you an example, I can go division wise, which gives you a little bit of an insight. So a critical care market till now was mostly focused on the secondary and the tertiary hospitals. Then we realized that there is a separate, I would say, antifungal task force required, which of certain hematologists, certain, I would say, oncologists, which also take up antifungal because all of the patients normally going through a chemotherapy are have immunosuppressed going also side by side. So just giving it this example and why I'm being a little bit specific. So critical care has given birth to a a Mycocare division, which is focused on antifungal products specifically. Then it also has given birth to a Primacare division. So the Primacare division is also a division which is catering to the Class B centers and Class C centers of India, where we see a big penetration coming in. Just to talk something, I was very impressed when I was going to my factory last couple of months. A big hospital, Nirali Hospital, has come up in Navsari, in the when you just enter Navsari, which is headed by L&T Naik Saab, and there you see a lot of penetration. Not like that we have seen in different parts of India, where the critical care space has actually moved beyond the major towns, A towns to B towns and C towns, and this penetration can be further aided by the Primacare division. Accessibility of high-end medicines are much affordable, and that should be a good growth driver going forward. Apart from the infertility, we have just started around 4 years ago, where we have focused basic conventional products and lyophil products. With the pre-filled syringes and the ready-to-use patches, the gels coming in, we see a lot of therapies which are much more convenient for the patient to administer in the in their own house, maybe in the close by registered medical practitioner. So we foresee a sort of divisions and different specialists coming in. It will help us to answer certain unmet needs in terms of penetration. So penetration might get saturated in some areas of the major Class A towns, which can be further grow by adding new molecules and by adding new drug delivery systems. Whereas there will be new geographies opening up, like I mentioned, the Class B and Class C in critical care. In Aster, we have only started in around 22. Okay. My answer was very boring.
You are speaking with has put your call.
I think we will move on to the next one.
4-5 years ago. Hello. Yeah, sir. Actually, I met you 4-5 years ago, and that at that point of time we had very clear vision. Like we don't want to go for very developed markets like US as of now. What we are focusing is a very niche product where we would be first, second, or third.
Sorry. What is your name, sir? I didn't. Kushal, you're still. Yeah, Kushalji, please go ahead. Yes, sir.
So I just want to know how has the strategy changed over last 4-5 years? Like how our vision has changed. Because at that point of time, I was very clear about, you were very clear when articulating what the company is going to stand for and what we are doing exactly. So if you can shed some light on that part.
So Kushalji, the vision and the growth drivers are still the same. So if I answer today also, as I mentioned, I'm sorry I don't remember that we met, but thank you for meeting me 5 years ago and believing in me. Just coming back, if you met me that time also, I was saying that this Indian market and the Europe market along with the semi-regulated markets are the way for us, and I'm not interested to go to US and Japan for the time being. Even if you ask me right now, I still feel we are 2 years, 3 years away from that market, because we all have our strengths, and luckily our current channels and avenues are giving us enough opportunity to grow and expand, and we don't need to go to a US and the Japan market right now. At the same time, certain of my clients who have their big contracts with me are pushing me to become a contract manufacturer for the American market, because they can also amortize the same basket into a US and a Europe market, or a US and a Brazil market, which, like I said, so again, if you ask me, for me to file my own A&D into US might be still not our plan at the time being. But we might enter in the next 2 to 3 years. Let's say how we also become more risk. I think we know also that we can handle the risk, and we can handle that bandwidth also. We have a big team who is part of our current growth effort, and they also give us a lot of confidence internally. Let's go and try for certain markets which might have seemed maybe alien for us some time ago. So that's the reason I again say, for we have enough opportunities in the market which we have started around 5-6 years ago. But if an opportunity comes up which is too difficult for us to say no, and it's too lucrative for us to say no, and I know that my team is to back me up, and we all are there and we are ready and here, we will not turn away that opportunity. So that is the only thing which has changed. Nothing else has changed otherwise.
So sir, if you have to say for next 3 years, top 5 focus geographies for the export market would be, how would you go chronologically?
India, Germany, or let's say India, it would be Southeast Asia, Brazil, and South America.
Okay.
When I meant even Russia would be part of that area thing. So yeah, that is what I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Aman Vij from Astute Investment Management. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Pranay. My first question is if you can give the breakup of the four business structures, sale for Q1 and maybe for Q4 also, and then subdivided into India, basically like you explain it in AGM. That will be helpful.
So you mean, hi, first of all, and you meant about the domestic contracting export and API?
Yeah,
right?
Yes. First is that, and then obviously you also used to give further breakup of the domestic. We have 6-7 segments now.
Yeah, so I think for me, since the figures have gone up, please excuse me today for the domestic breakup will be difficult for me on hand, but of course we can always send it to you when your query comes. Coming back to the four space, only for this quarter there has been little of a deviation. The domestic space, which was earlier, having the majority of, has a little bit much more because the exports we could not cater because our capacities have been, diverted to the domestic space. So I would say the contract manufacturing has grown by around, around by 15-20%. The domestic space has been a bigger chunk of the export, so that is now mostly on a higher side, around 70% for this quarter specifically. India has continued its 8 to 10%. Sorry, this quarter it has gone down to the to 6 to 7% because of the specific other formulations going up. So exports, I am saying year on year we might see the percentage becoming consistent, or maybe exports, like I said, bit increasing eventually and growing. At the same time, the domestic space also will takes its own space.
Sure, Pranay. Just one suggestion and then I'll move to second question. Maybe you can include these numbers in the presentation itself because
sure.
These are some basic
good suggestion. Definitely.
Yeah. And so you expect the export to come back in second quarter, or it will take, say, third quarter to start coming back, the export sales?
No. So second quarter has already been initiated from mid-July because we got a little bit of capacities free from mid-July. So I feel second quarter should see a good jump, and then of course third has its own organic other registrations will be kicking in of. We already have expecting Canada, Brazil, and Russia orders anyway. Some of them already come, and we start catering them from September onward, October onwards. So I foresee the thing to come back by second quarter itself.
Sure. And my second question is basically on the capacity. So you said we will be doing 120 crore capex. So just to get this further, so we already have 100 crore of say net block, which is Unit 1 and Unit 2. And we are already achieving a sales of, you can say, 200 crore if I am removing 50 crore of COVID sales, quarterly run rate. So if you can explain and then give some timelines also, like Unit 3 and Unit 4 combined is 120 crore, or we'll require maybe 30-40 crore more, or is it 100 crore per year you are targeting capex, and what will be the peak sales from these two units?
Okay, yeah. So I would say that the 120 to 130 crore is the cost of the both the Unit 3 and Unit 4 combined. Of course, I'm not counting a land cost as a part of this. So land cost will be apart from this. This is just the plant, machinery, and basic building. It'll be very difficult for me to give you any numbers of the revenue. But of course, just to give you a hint about that we are creating a capacity in this Unit 3, which will be a combined capacity of Unit 1 and Unit 2. So that is the scale up which we are doing. And apart from that, we are adding some other lines also of drug delivery systems. The Penem, of course, comes with its own, I would say, opportunity, because currently in the Indian domestic space, we have our Penem block, which is Penem market products which are outsourced. So a lot of that outsourced markets will come back in-house, which will make our margins improve. At the same time, because it's a cutthroat and it's a commodity type of product line, the differentiation will come because we are coming with a new drug delivery system of these Penems, which will be the game changer for us in the years to come. Give you a timeline. I mentioned both these blocks would be ready by Q3 2023. That is next year, September to December. We see the commercialization happening from these blocks, and they definitely would be the next growth drivers of the organization going forward. if you put me on a gunpoint, like I said, all this will eventually contribute to the 15 year-over-year minimum growth what we expect.
Thank you, sir. We have next question from the line of Runjhun Jain from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm sorry, sir, I'm just new to the company, so it's my
I'm sorry to interrupt. We cannot hear you very well. If you could please use the handset.
Can you hear me now?
No, we still can't. If you can please use the handset. Thank you.
Yeah. Is it better?
Much better. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and sorry to the new to the company, so if my questions are very basic, pardon me. So you said that the COVID contributed to 15 to 20% growth, or is it the 15 to 20% of Q1 sales?
Yeah, of the quarter sales. Yeah. So you understand, of the quarter sales, 15 to 20% have been these COVID drugs. The overall number, yes.
So if I remove that and what you said that you would be growing from 15% for the year, sir, then the quarterly run rate for the next 9 months comes very low. So is it something we are very conservative we are doing this, or this is something because this will taper down because of the COVID portfolio going away?
So again, I say the 15% is the bare minimum which I am saying. Of course, this year will be beyond that 15% because of this first quarter and other growth factors which we have. I agree with you. So yes, this year it might be much more than 15%. But I'm saying because the base of this year will be a little bit higher as compared to the last year. In the future years, we are at least targeting and planning something that we have a 15% minimum growth beyond this year also. That is where all these efforts are going in. So COVID being there or COVID not being there, we should have enough avenues by which we sustain on a 15% year-over-year after this year.
That's helpful. So, whenever we go through the financials, I see that the company actually gone into a different trajectory in terms of the sales and the margins from last year, second quarter, which is September quarter onwards. Is it because of the combined merger of the Gufic Bio with Gufic Life Sciences, or something because of COVID is happening?
Okay. So if you see, it's not, I think, per se due to COVID. If you follow the companies in the last 5-6 years, a lot of efforts have been gone in terms of expansion of our capacity. Number 2, expansion of our presence in the domestic space. Number 3, expansion of our product pipeline, and also expansion of the new, like I said, geography is coming in and new markets opening up. So all these factors had some time had to evolve in terms of the basic revenue. So what we have seen in the last, I would say, 1 year or maybe last 9 months to 12 months is that a lot of things have started now opening up and clicking for us, where all these efforts have been put in from 2015, 16, 17 onwards. So a new market, a new opportunity comes in. The German market has been also very kind to us, and we have got a good market share. So different avenues. I would not put it to one way, but like I said, putting COVID aside, we are quite, I would say, have our own plan to take it beyond. And COVID just came as a additional help, which helped us further cash flow, by which we can further on our future growth prospects with this new investment going forward.
Thank you, sir. We take the last question from the line of Keshav from Raxan Investors. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for taking my question and congratulations for a very, very good quarter. So my first question is that you've been doing R&D for and are also ready to commercialize 3 biological peptides this financial year. So peptides and biologics is a niche space, and we don't see a lot of small-sized players here. Even other products like botulinum toxin positions even a different league product-wise from most similar-sized and even more mature players. So I would first like to understand your vision in the medium term for all the niche complex molecules in the pipeline. Would love to know your experience of why it is such a difficult space to enter, the challenges, and what sets you apart from the other players.
So Keshav, yeah, very good question. So I'll just give you a little background about me. I am a B.Pharm from UT City, and then I'm a MSc in biotechnology from Hopkins. So, I came back to India, and I'll just take a minute or two of yours to explain why this mindset has come along with my team. Is because we realize that, with the size which we have now, if we try to go in the conventional way or in the generic way, we're going to be good at that. We have that huge blood capsule factory, and we have so much, I would say, money also to our resource available. And at the time when we started off, that could go and do something that is much ours. We let go hanging fruit in terms of an injectable space, which gave us enough, I would say, impetus to create a mark there. And we felt that I'll give you a little bit of background. The Gufic in terms of injectables is sort of a 3-generation affair for us. So it's my grandfather, my father, and myself. We all have been part of the process, and we have somewhere, I would say, not talking in a very arrogant way, but in a very, I would say, assured manner, we have created a small space for us in the injectable space, and we are quite confident of it going forward. If you complement injectable space, apart from what else comes is the biosimilars peptides going forward. And that way we said there are certain low-hanging fruits or certain things, like instead of me to focus on 10 molecules of tablet or 50 launches a year of random molecules, I would rather focus on limited candidates which have a sort of a long-term, I would say, sustainability. So if I to put it in some way, you have maybe a paracetamol, but you also have maybe a aspirin, or you have maybe indomethacin, or you have other combinations of painkillers. But when you talk about a botulinum toxin, for the next 10-15 years, I don't foresee a new toxin coming and completely irradiating out a botulinum toxin. Or we talk about certain hormonal peptides or certain immunopeptides or something. There are very few, I would say, new pipeline which can come and completely offset the entire growth curve. So if I take those candidates and I combine them with a new drug delivery system, which is the core competency of the company, that is the way forward, is something which makes me quite confident, because I'm not good at other things. So let me just be good at what I am and my company is, and we just try to explore and take that potential forward, and that makes us more confident and sure of the results going forward.
Really heartening to hear that, sir. So my second question would be that we are also entering into penems, and Coprin is also expanding in the space apart from the 2 players you mentioned at the beginning of the call. So, sir, what is the opportunity size? Do we see competitive intensity going up for penems? Or how difficult is it for a new player to enter? And would it be more of an export-centric line for us than domestic?
I think a lot of all, because if you ask me only for the domestic space, would I have entered penem? Definitely not. I would still be much more happy to outsource and keep another part of my basket. The drug delivery system which we are going to offer to the Indian market is the number one reason. The number 2 reason is, of course, the export market, where we go with these 20, 30 molecules, or now maybe 40, 50 molecules in the near future. They say, why don't you offer me this also? Because as a buyer who's having a good front end there, or we have our own marketing there, they also want the entire basket of life-saving injectables and ICU-centric medicines happening together. So that gives us the second reason to get into that thing. Number 3 also, domestically, we always feel that the operating leverage will be there going forward in terms of the economic of scale. So we are trying to get into things where we know that we will have that economic of scale and that buying power to make us always earn enough of margins apart from the conventional one which we have. And so these 3 factors, the operating leverage, the export basket offering, and also because of the new drug delivery systems, makes it a little bit different from other people getting into penems. And I'm saying, yes, a lot of competition will be there. It's already there internationally. It's already there in India. But our vision is beyond just India and the conventional products. It's orals, it's lyophilized, it's new bags, dual chamber bags, and much beyond for penems, which makes us a little bit different from others.
Great, sir. Sir, can I ask another question if that's okay?
I think Vikram is the right person. I have been asked to follow his instructions. Vikram, is it okay if he asks the last question?
Yes, please go ahead, sir. Please.
Thank you. Sir, do you see a positive impact due to long COVID on your basket of drugs?
You mean positive or negative?
Sir, I mean, positive to the company, obviously. Positive impact.
Yeah, if you ask me, if you ask me as a normal individual, I hope this COVID, eventually with the vaccination, everything goes off, because we have lot of other things to also offer beyond that, and people will stop asking me, "Are COVID-centric hai tumhara company ke beyond hai?" But answering, yes, so beyond COVID, we have our own plan set up before this 2021 year, or even in the this 21-22 year. And which I explained in all these events in terms of APIs, in terms of geographical markets, and all that. So even if COVID continues, yes, we have traction going forward. COVID goes away, we have also other things to start opening up and take it forward. But yeah, like I said, I'm being very honest and upfront. This first quarter had a traction in the top line and the bottom line because of which I have also said 15-20% of the top line is recovered, and that's why the thing is there. Going forward without COVID also, we have plans in place in the near future and or by the end of the year that we sustain this growth going forward. That's what you have in the first quarter. Maybe in the next 2 quarters will still be not say at this level, or might be depending on how the market opens up. But yeah, these are numbers not in isolation. We hope we can sustain them for years to come with a 15% year-over-year growth.
Sir, basically, I did not mean if the COVID prolongs. Basically, long-term effects of COVID can lead to other neurological.
Oh yeah. Of course. Sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood your question. So yeah, of course. So there are a lot of. That's what I mentioned in my management report. My team mentioned also that did we started investing a lot in R&D also in the first quarter. We saw a lot of new product pipelines coming up, especially in diabetes, in cardiac issues, and also in terms of nutraceuticals, where a lot of post-COVID I would say issues are coming up in people. And there's another avenue of, I would say treatment possible, which we can play a role into. So yes, you are absolutely right. Not only us, many pharma companies are foreseeing this. We also are working on something which can be given along with vaccination, which helps to, have a antibody response, which is much more, I would say, which is much more persistent. So of course, there are a lot of other things which will definitely come to play post-COVID and different things which we are working on also. I hope I understood it correctly now.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks a lot, sir. I do have more questions, but I will probably then join in the next quarter call then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I would now like to hand the conference over to Ms. Ami Shah for closing comments. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you everyone for joining this call. I hope we have clarified all your queries, and in case there are any further queries that remain unanswered today, you can reach to our investor relation team. Thank you so much. Please stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Gufic Biosciences Limited, that concludes this conference call. Thank you for joining with us, and you may now disconnect your lines.